Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for joining my session. Today we are going to dive into the automation of the deployment process of the solution that you create in the Dataverse for teams. Not like just a normal Dataverse, but Dataverse for teams. So let me tell about myself a little bit. My name is Katerina Chernevskaya. I'm an MVP in business application category. I have a number of years, so it's a very scare number of Microsoft technologies in this area. I constantly speaking in different worldwide events and publish content on LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me and connect with me. Let's talk and let's grow together. And also I'm a contributor and collaborator in the Microsoft Sample Solution Gallery based for Power Platform. It's an awesome repository where you can find a lot of different outstanding works. You can get inspired. You can start to use them. And moreover, you can start sharing your work and contribute in this gallery. So I encourage you to do this. If you do not know about this, just type sharing is caring or Microsoft Sample Solution Gallery and learn more, or just ping me in LinkedIn and I will cover you. Okay, let's talk about the application making. When you make a new application, you're probably thinking about the code firstly, right? How to make it better, how to follow best practices, naming convention, performance, etc., etc. But you know, the great software, the appealing application is more just than a good code. So in reality, the path of the application begins when circumstances dictate its necessity. And when, for instance, you or your client experience any inconvenience in their work or any idea came to their mind, you start planning and track. You need to understand what they would like to have, why they would like to have this application, how you can build them. So you start generating different like documents, gather requirements, etc., etc. So you start planning, and this is the initial stage. Then, of course, when everything is done, you go to development stage and build application or part of the application, test it, deploy it, your users starting operate and work with this application. You should collect and monitor statistics, how your users are using your app, and make decisions based on this information. And these steps repeat over and over again. So this cycle, application lifecycle management, repeat for all iterations during your project. And all these steps are very important. So you do not need to focus only on the development. You need to cover all these steps and work closely with your colleagues like BA, testers, architects, etc., etc. And this is holistic approach. And you need to pay attention on all these stages. But in these 40 minutes, we are going to talk about deployment process, how you migrate components that you build from one environment to another environment. I think that everybody knows that you need at least 3 environments: environment for development, environment for testing, and environment for production. At least 3, but normally in different projects you could have more, like for testing, for different testing, for UAT, etc., etc. And you need a good way how you migrate solutions from one point environment to another. There are different ways how you can do this. Of course, the first one is manual. You can export solution, you can import solution, but manual approach can lead to errors and it's time consuming. So I think that you won't want to use this. So you need to automate it. There are different tools how you can automate. The first one and maybe more popular now is pipelines in Power Platform for managed environments, for instance. So you can turn on it and use it. But what if you are creating your applications in Dataverse for Teams? For Dataverse for Teams, unfortunately, pipelines in Power Platform are not allowed. So in this case, you need to find another way how to automate your deployment process. And in this case, you can use Azure DevOps for streamline your deployment process. In this case, you can get solution from one Dataverse for Teams environment and migrate or put or deploy to another one. So I do not have a lot of slides today. That's why let's move to the demonstration. We will cover this line of codes a little bit later today, and I will explain everything for you. Let me explain what we have in place and what we are going to deploy today during our demonstration. So normally when you are using let's say Dataverse for Teams, Power Apps for Teams, you are going to the Teams and go to Power Apps and build your solution, component of your solution under the Build tab. In my case, for the demo purpose, I have demo dev environment where I already have several components. I have a Canvas app application, I have a table, and I have an environment variable. We can see all and see what we have. So the environment variable is storing the color for our application. Table is storing the information from the Canvas app application, and the Canvas app application, pretty simple application, a few images and a few label controls, just to introduce that this application we have in our dev environment, and we would like to migrate this application into the target environment. In our case, it will be test environment. So here in this application, I have my table, survey results. I have my environment variables, and environment variables I'm using in the named formulas here. So we can see that this color is using for color of my label controls. So this is pretty simple application, and we are going to migrate it. Where is our target environment? Let's go back to the home page and go back to the build. And I have demo test environment. And this is pretty empty environment. I don't have any components here yet, and I do not want to build these components from scratch manually. I would like use the Azure DevOps to deploy automatically using pipelines all components from my dev environment to this test environment. Let's see how it could be. First of all, we need to remember that if we are talking about automation of deployment process, we need to talk about solution, not separate components like separate Canvas application or separate table. We need to talk about the entire solution. Normally, when you are working with a let's say production environment or a sandbox environment, development environment, or a trial environment, it's a very straightforward way. You are going to the Maker portal, go to the solutions, create a new solution, and put all your components inside the solution. Basically, you should create your components inside the solution. In the Dataverse for Teams, it's a little bit different way how you can see everything, because in the Dataverse for Teams, you just create like a new here, but to be honest, all these components are located in the default solution. They are not located in the solution that we can take in our pipeline in Azure DevOps and proceed with deployment. So the first step that we need to do with all our components, we need to create a solution in the Dataverse for Teams environment and put these created components inside this new solution. How we can do this? Not so obviously might be, because if you are going to the Maker portal and expand this drop-down menu for environments, you can't see environments with type Microsoft Teams. You can see environments just production, sandbox, trial, developer, just that. how we can open Maker Portal and open our environment in the Maker Portal Dataverse for Teams. Let's go into our environment. So under the Build tab, we can see these small 3 dots. It's very easy to miss them because they are very small, but now you know where to look at, and you can just click on these 3 dots and open in Power Apps. When you hit this button, the Make Power Apps portal is open. Not dissimilar, because you see here you don't have a lot of options that you have in normal environment. You don't have this drop-down list, but nevertheless, this is a Maker Portal for our Dataverse for Teams environment. And here you can create a solution. You can create publisher. I already created a publisher for myself. So you can create a new solution, and in this solution you can add components that you created in the Microsoft Teams. For the demo purpose, I already created a solution, demo experiment, and if we are going here, we see all our 3 components, the environment variable, the Canvas application, and the table. So I literally just hit this button, add existing, and selected the type of component that I want to add, and added them here. So we prepared our solution in the Dataverse for Teams environment, this one, and this solution we are going to move to our demo test. In our demonstration, we are going to use Azure DevOps. To use Azure DevOps, we need to make some configuration before we will create the pipelines. Let's go to the Azure DevOps and let me cover which configuration we need to do. First of all, if you did not have any experience with Azure DevOps, no worries, you can just go to the dev.azure.com, sign in with your work account, and create your first organization. Organization in Azure DevOps, it is not a tenant like a tenant, it's like a let's say folder in the Azure DevOps. You can see that I can have a lot of organizations here. You can invite your colleagues in this organization, and in the organization you can have multiple projects. When you have your organization in Azure DevOps, in my case, I'm going to use this organization, KCH Experiments. First of all, you need to check organization settings. Organization settings are located here, and let's click on this button. Scroll down a little bit and open Parallel Jobs. Parallel Jobs is mandatory component that should be in place to allow us to use pipelines in Azure DevOps. Basically, when you create a new organization, no tier of Microsoft hosted parallel job is in place. In this case, you will need to request a free tier. You will see here a link. You can click here to the link. The new form, Microsoft Forms, will be open that has 3 or 4 questions. Pretty simple form. You will need to provide your email address, the name of your organization, the type of your projects, and that's it. And within 2 or 3 business days, you will see this free tier that grant you 1,800 minutes per month. And each month, this capacity will be renewed. So you will be able to use this capacity for your pipelines. This is the first thing that you need to check in the organization settings. And the second one, under the settings, you need to check that disable creation of classic build pipelines is off. And disable creation of classic release pipelines is off too. Sometimes when you create in your organization, sometimes they are enabled. You need to disable them. Okay, once you create configured these settings, you can go to the Azure DevOps organization and create a new project. For this demonstration, I already created a new project. I didn't configure it yet, so I just created it. So let's go to this Teams Nation project. When you create your project in Azure DevOps, you need to make some changes in the settings, in the project settings as well. Before we made changes in the organization settings, now let's go to the project settings. In the project settings, let's scroll down to the repositories, and under the tab Security, select your users and grant permissions for contribute. This permission will allow us to store code in our repository, in our single point of truth, and allow also manage nodes, this one. So you need to allow these two permissions. No save button, so just allow. You see these green marks here, and everything, it means that everything is in place. Now we need to go to our repository because it's a new project that was not configured yet. We do not have any repository, any branch here. Let's create a new branch. Just click here, initialize button, and a new branch will be created. This is Teams Nation branch where all our code will be storing. Now it's empty, just a README file, but after we create a pipeline, the code of our Canvas app application, of our table, and of our environment variable will be here. And this code we will be able to use to deploy to our test environment. So the configuration is done, and now we can go to the pipelines and create the new pipeline. Before we are starting to create a new pipeline, I need to mention that we are going to use Power Platform build tool in these pipelines. I already installed this extension for my organization. This extension should be installed to the Azure DevOps organization, not project. So if your organization in Azure DevOps is new, you need to go to the marketplace, go to Browse Marketplace, and find Power Platform Build Tool extension and install it. It's completely free, take several minutes, and after that you can proceed with the following steps. Okay, so now let's create our first pipeline, like CI pipeline, the pipeline that will export our solution from the Dataverse for Teams environment and store the code of this solution in our repository. Let's use classic editor. Here we need to check because it's a fresh new project, because we have just only one repository, and this is repository's main branch. We just click continue. We do not need to change anything here. And let's start with empty job. We are going to add all steps manually. Before we start adding steps manually, we need to configure two things. For the get sources, scroll down and uncheck shallow fetch, because if you forget to uncheck shallow fetch, it will cause errors in your pipeline run. The second thing, go to agent job and check allow scripts to access the auth token. This option will allow us to commit our changes. In terms of git commit, it's basically save our changes. We will export solution from our Dataverse for Teams environment, and to store this code in the repository, we need to save this code in the repository. In terms of DevOps, we need to commit this code to our repository. That's why we need this checkbox here. Now we are able to add several steps by clicking on the plus button. So the first step will be installing the Power Platform build tool in the pipeline. Let's find it. Power Platform tool installer. If you are going to use any actions from the Power Platform build tool, the first step in your pipeline should be this one, Power Platform tool installer. This step install this extension in the particular pipeline. Without this step, you will get errors. Now we need to export the solution. Let's find the export solution, and after we export the solution, we will need to unpack the solution, because you know that we can export solution as a zip file, but in our source control in our repository, we would like to store not zip file, but the source code. So that's why we need to unpack the solution. Let's find this one, unpack. And the last step that we need to add, this is a command line. This one. Command line will allow us to commit our changes, to save our changes in the repos. You can see that some attention is needed for to these steps. Let's see what we need to do. We need to configure these steps. First of all, we need to configure the authentication type. We need to provide information to our pipeline how to connect to the environment from where we would like to export the solution. You have different options. You can use username and password, or you can create a service principal like app registration in the Azure portal and use service principal account. For the demo purpose, let's use username and password. We don't have any service connection yet because this project is completely new. That's why we need to create a new one. So click manage. We don't have here anything. Create service connection. Because we are going to use username and password, we need to select generic type. Click next. And here we need to provide information. Server URL, this is URL for our Dataverse for Teams environment. How to find it? Let's go to our environment, Dataverse for Teams. Let's open settings and open session details. Instance URL. This is what we are looking for. You can copy here and paste here. Username, I'm using my username, and password, let me retype. Service connection name, let's say if it will be dev. You can provide description. In normal project, you have to provide description. For the purpose, so we can skip this step and click save. We created our first connection to the dev environment Dataverse for Teams. Let's go back to our pipeline. Let's refresh. And now we can see our dev connection. Now, environment URL, this is predefined variable for Azure DevOps that store information about the environment. We do not need to change anything here. Now we need to provide the solution name. You can hard code the solution name here, but I do not recommend you to hard code anything in the pipeline, because if something changes, it will be easier to change in the value of the variable, because in the different parts of your pipeline, you can use the solution name. That's why we need a variable. And here, the first variable that I provide on this slide, and you will be able to find this presentation on my LinkedIn later on. So you will be able to copy and paste all these values when you will play with your pipelines. So solution name, this is a variable that will store the solution name for us. Paste it here. Then solution output file. When Azure DevOps pipeline try to export the solution from the Dataverse for Teams environments or for Dataverse environment, it should store this zip file somewhere. And in the Dataverse, we have predefined variables that we can use. So let's copy and let's paste here. So this is artifact staging directory where this zip file will be storing, and the zip file will have a name of our solution .zip, because we are going to export unmanaged solution. You will be able to export managed solution. Just click here in this box and provide additionally this manage suffix. Okay, so other options here we don't configure. Let's go to the unpack tab, and here we need to provide the solution input file. In the previous step, we had the solution output file where we put the zip file of our solution, and here we need to provide the same value. And the next, where we would like to unpack the solution. We would like to unpack the solution to our repository. For our repository, we have a predefined variable as well. This one. So this is build source directory, our repository, and the new folder will be generated for us with the name of our solution. We are going to use unmanaged type, but you feel free to use managed or both types. And the last thing in this pipeline is to configure the command line script. For this, we need to copy this text, replace with this text, and do not forget to replace your email and name. That's one, and you need to replace your name, this one. And last thing that we need to do, we need to configure the variable. So let's copy the variable. And now, oops. Let's go here and copy this name for our variable. Oh, and variable we need to provide here just like this. So everything is in place. All tasks are here, and we can click Save and Queue button. You can leave comment and click Save and Run. If everything is okay, after several minutes, we will see the code here in the repository. The time of run depends on the number of components of your solution. You can open the agent job here, and you can see how this job proceed. You remember that we configured for the organization settings the parallel job. If you didn't configure the parallel job, and if your Azure DevOps organization does not have parallel job, you will see error on the initialize job on this step. We do not have any errors here because our organization in Azure DevOps already has a parallel job. That's why our steps are proceeding. So the Power Platform build installer, the first step that we had, it's pretty fast step. Just install all necessary tools from the Power Platform build tool for our pipeline. And now the export is started. When you click on the particular step, you can see here on the black screen all sub-steps that are proceeding. For instance, you can see that authenticated successfully. That means that we provide correct login and password, or if you are using service principal account, you provide correct details to connect to this environment, and then you can see how it's going on. If any errors occur here, you will see information about this error, and you will be able to resolve this error based on what happened. So we just need to wait some time. And once the expert solution will complete, the next step, unpack solution, should be pretty fast. Unpack solution will take a zip file, unzip it, and save in our repository. And the last step, command line, will save our changes in the repository. So let's wait a little bit. It should take up to 5 minutes because we don't have a heavy solution. It's just 3 components. To do not waste the time, we can switch to maybe to another one, to my demo, to my demo project. And here I have pretty the same pipeline. So we have expert solution, unpack solution, and common line. And I have variables, demo experiments here. And once the pipeline was done, so the run was done successfully. In the repository, I saw this folder, demo experiment, and in this folder, I saw everything that I had in my solution. So Canvas app application, entities, and for entities, I have so I have this one, and for the environment variable, I have my color. So this one. This is the first pipeline that basically you need to create, and this pipeline take the solution from your dev environment and store the code unpacked in your repository. Why it's important? Because in this case, you will have the single point of truth. Your code will be here, and you will be able to get this code and deploy whenever you need. To test environment, after testing, you can get this code and deploy to the production environment, etc., etc. If you have any issues during the testing, you can go back to the development environment and make any changes and proceed with this pipeline as well. Meantime, I think that our pipeline should complete. Let's see. Yes, everything is okay. So pipeline completed successfully, all steps completed, and we are going to the repository. You remember that we had only README file here, but now we have this folder, demo experiment, and we can open it and see all our components. Let's create the second pipeline. The second pipeline should deploy our solution from this repository to our test environment. So let's create a new pipeline. Again, use classic editor, continue, empty job, and uncheck shallow fetch. For this pipeline, we do not need to allow these scripts because for this pipeline, we do not commit any changes. So you can check this box or uncheck, it doesn't matter. Again, we are going to install Power Platform Tooling installer. And for this pipeline, we will need firstly to pack the solution. In the previous pipeline, we unpacked the solution because we wanted to store in the code repository. Now we would like to pack the solution. And the last step, we would like to import the solution in our test environment. Import. So, and again, we need to configure these two steps. For the source folder, we need to get our environment variable for this source folder here. The solution output file, again, this one, because we will pack this code and we will store this zip file in the staging directory. Unmanaged, okay, everything is okay. For the import, first of all, we need to configure the username and password for the service connection. We have only dev, and now we need to create the second one. Create a new service connection, again generic, username the same, password this one. And now we need to get a server URL from our Teams, but now not demo dev, for our targeted environment demo test. Let's open in the Power Apps Maker portal. should open in another mode. Yes, we do not see here. Go to the session details and copy this instance URL. Copy, go back here. Let's call it test, save, refresh, and select this one. And solution input file, it's the same where we are storing on the staging directory. What we need to provide information about our variable, and this will be this one. Copy and paste. So basically that's it, and we can save and continue. It will take several minutes as well. Once it will be completed, we will see these components, Canvas app application, table, and environment variable in our test environment in the Teams. So basically, let's put it here. Now it's completely empty. Let's wait a little bit. I hope I paste everything correctly. So basically, meantime, when it's proceed with the import, it will take several minutes. I would highlight that this is pretty simple solutions that we created, just export and import. We did not like publish customizations. We did not make any settings files for change values for our environment variables. We did not create any build pipelines, etc., etc. So it's like a first steps how you can utilize Azure DevOps for your Power Platform DevOps Power Platform environments, the Dataverse for Teams. Let's wait. And again, here for all these steps, you can see all information on the screen, black screen, what was going on, where your zip file is located. If any errors occur, information will be here, and you will be able to identify what's going on. For instance, if you have MFA in your tenant and you are using user and password service connection, you will get an error, because if you have MFA, you will be able to configure pipelines only with the service principal account. In this case, you will need to go to the Azure portal, create app registration, add this app registration to the Dataverse, provide required permissions for this app registration, and use this app registration for the pipelines. It's a limitation for the Dataverse for Teams, because Dataverse for Teams compared with a normal Dataverse has some limitations. In Dataverse for Teams, you are not allowed to add up users. You can add just users. So in this case, you won't be able to use service principal account, but for other environments, it's allowed. So let's wait. Meantime, when we are waiting, let's move to my presentation and to see some. Yeah, Dataverse for Teams and Azure DevOps is better together, because you avoid any manual operations, you avoid time-consuming operations, and you can automate everything. And whenever new capabilities or features was created in your Dataverse for Teams dev environment, you can add them in your data source, and data source will be your single point of truth for the code. So next step, what you can do. As I said before, you can add a settings files in the repository. In this case, you will be able to manage values for your environment variables or connection references that you have in the solution. Also, you can connect your CI and CD pipelines. Like now we created these separate pipelines and we need to run them manually, but you can configure that if the first pipeline completed successfully, it will trigger automatically the second pipeline. So you won't be needed to trigger it manually. You can also add a build pipeline. For instance, it's like a middle pipeline. When you have code in your repository, but you do not ready to deploy this code into the target environment, you can create a build and store this build in the artifact, and you can deploy this artifact later on. Or if you have multiple environments where you need to build the same code, you can just build once this code in the solution, and then using different pipelines, you can distribute this code in different environments. You also can create a release pipeline. Basically, a release pipeline is just a pipeline, but it's usually used for releasing to the production environments. So release pipelines you can find, so let me show you here. And meantime, our pipeline, the second one, completes successfully. Now, if I'm going to the Teams in my demo test and refresh my browser, it should take seconds for refreshing. Go back to the Power-Ups, go to the Build tab. And now in the demo test environment, I have all my three components, my environment variable, my Canvas app application, and my table. And if I open a Canvas app application, I will see my fancy man in the pink jacket, and yes, everything is in place. So this is pretty the simple way how you can start using pipelines in Azure DevOps to automate your CI/CD processes for Dataverse for Teams. Dataverse for Teams has some limitations because you can't use pipeline in Power Platform environments, but nevertheless, you can automate your deployment. So that's it, and I'm pretty in time, and I love to hear your questions. I don't have my second screen, so if you have any questions, just maybe turn on your microphone and ask. Yeah, and useful links. I provide several links. The first one is my article on LinkedIn with a step-by-step guide how you can use pipelines in Azure DevOps for Dataverse for Teams. So if you would like to repeat, you can follow these steps. And several Microsoft links that are useful as well. And please rate my session. Yeah, the time for questions.
Yeah.
So let me stop sharing and let's see if I have.
There was a good discussion on the chat, and I was totally lost when reading it. So if you can see the chat, I guess you can answer it way better.
Oh, yes, I will provide the link to the sample gallery. Yeah, thank you very much. And I encourage everybody to look at this gallery. It's awesome. Yeah. Do you have any tips on how to move Power Automate flows within solutions, especially with the Dataverse for Teams? If you can provide some more details, probably I can provide information. So Power Automate flows is a typical component that you can add in your solution in the Dataverse for Teams and can proceed with the same way. As we discussed, Power-Ups flows can be added to the solution. I used this example, moving between. Yes, Chris, thank you very much. Just got to make sure your setup environment variables are able to use current environment in your trigger action in the flow, so they don't even move. So regarding the environment variable, Power Platform Build tool makes this job for us, and this is a predefined variable that handle information from the connection from the service I forget the name. From the service connections that we have, and you should not change anything regarding the name of environment in the pipeline unless you delete the environment variable. Using DevOps seems like a much more advanced version of customization. This work with full Dataverse management. So Azure DevOps, basically, it's not only for migration your solution. Basically, it's using for different purposes. You can handle and manage your tasks for project. You can store documentation in the wiki. You can automate the test for your solutions, whatever you need. So yes, it's more advanced tool, and you can migrate and deploy solutions between different tenants even using DevOps. So yeah, DevOps, it's like a powerful tool, and I encourage you, if you didn't try it. The next one, I know how to prepare that. What I'm trying to ask is something. There are problems with connection reference. This is pretty the same. So regarding connection reference, you need to add connection reference. And if you need to switch connection reference from environment to environment, because in different environments, you have different IDs, it is better to use settings files. Using Power Platform CLI, you can create settings files for the solution, put the settings files in the repository in the Azure DevOps, and change values that should be applied for particular environment. And using the pipeline, you will need to mark a tick box, use deploy settings file, and your pipeline will handle this settings file and update connection reference value during the deployment, and you will resolve this issue with connection references.
And what about sharing that with the users? Sorry, Matti told me I can unmute. So my recent problem was that after having a pipeline that transported my flows, users were not able to use it. So part of the functionality was not available for users. And I had to write some PowerShell scripts to actually share those with everyone within the environments. And I was just wondering how that is with those Dataverse for Teams, because that seems even less capable than regular Dataverse environment.
Very good question. So to answer regarding the normal environments, I firstly need to understand which service connection you use, because if you use app registration, it's normal, because when you use app registration, this app registration basically deploy this solution to the target environment, and this app registration, in the simple words, is an owner of this solution. That's why you need to reshare. In the Dataverse
this
for
one
Teams,
does not have a license, right? You're not able to assign the license.
It shouldn't have, yeah. It shouldn't have license, yeah.
And then if you want to use, sorry, maybe I wasn't clear at the beginning. When you want to use this service principal, the one from app registration, to access, for example, Dataverse, any records from Dataverse, then if the user does not have proper permissions, you can obviously update that information using the service account. But if the flow is not shared, then the connection will not be available. And first couple of times my deployments failed due to the fact that it was not able to find the proper connection, since you're not able to change the owner of the connection reference that is created automatically when you create a flow.
Yes, it's depending on how you configured your flow and which type of license you used. I had this issue, and I just need to recall how we resolved it. Maybe you can ping me on LinkedIn, and I will find this case in my.
Absolutely, no worries.
Yeah, and we can discuss it. So we need to understand your license type for the flow, and we need to understand how you configure this flow and how this flow could be shared. Yeah, and regarding access to Dataverse, normally if you use app registration, you should use security roles that you transform in this solution and grant the security roles to your users. So you do not provide your, according to best practices, you do not provide your users direct access to different Dataverse tables. You combine everything you need in the security role, put the security role in the solution, and deploy the solution with this component. So I miss where we stopped. Matty, could you please help me?
I guess we covered everything.
Okay, thank you very much. A lot of questions. So thank you, guys. And if you have any questions, just ping me on LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to continue this conversation. And Matti and Vesco, thanks for having me today. It's an awesome event.
Yeah, thank you for joining and sharing your knowledge. It was excellent. I totally dropped at some point that this is not my game, but really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.